August 1948, and a young preacher named George Vandeman was preparing to take the pulpit. That was 70 years ago, and since that time, Soquel Camp Meeting has convened every summer. In many ways, Soquel embodies America's camp meeting, a timeless tradition of faith intersecting with culture, pleasure with praise, and truth within tradition. Camp Meeting is so valuable we believe it should be shared not just once, but all year long. That is why the Central California Conference leadership team has produced the Best of Soquel. Our special made-for-TV editions showcase the best Soquel has to offer, while providing for you the best of Soquel programming from the comfort of your own home. These newly released programs are our gifts to you, and the best part is you don't have to register an RV, pack a suitcase, sleep in a tent, or so much as leave your front door. You can literally go to camp meeting right now from the comfort of that favorite armchair. We invite you today to sit back, relax, let the Holy Spirit in, and enjoy the best of Soquel today. Santa Cruz, California, one of the Golden State's most sought-after destinations. Year-round surfing on a vast array of beaches. A world-famous boardwalk with attractions for all ages. A global hub for organic living and vegetarian cuisine, and a short drive from other well-known cities such as San Francisco and Monterey. And yet, like any sizable city, Santa Cruz is home to those whose lives are defined by loss, by pain, and by the fear that a medical or dental emergency may cost them everything. For some, it already has. This is a reality that the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Central California is not only aware of, but is actively seeking to alleviate through an initiative called Life Hope Centers. The initiative, initially launched by the global Seventh-day Adventist Church, brings together volunteers from around the state to provide free, whole-person medical, dental, and vision care to residents of Central California cities.
We embraced Life Hope Centers because we wanted something to really touch the people's lives with. We wanted to really meet people where they are, to give them a sense that they are valued, that they are loved, that they are important, that they are in fact children of the divine.
Moved by that passion, more than 300 volunteers gathered on the grounds of the Soquel Conference Center in Santa Cruz County to bring hope and healing to as many as would come. Dentists, optometrists and ophthalmologists, physicians, nurses, nutritionists, medical massage specialists, counselors, hospitality volunteers, and parking lot attendants. They came to serve and to love, some because they had walked a similar road as those who would come to be served.
At the time, I had a health problem. I was told that possibly I had cancer, so that totally changed my perspective about life. And I realized that I was living maybe a very selfish life, just thinking about me. And it was a moment where I didn't know, doctors didn't know, they were monitoring, and they wouldn't tell me if I had cancer or not. So for a whole year I didn't know. During that time, what kept me going is just doing God's work, being an instrument for Him, and just volunteering and doing whatever He asked me for. And that actually helped me not think about cancer so much and think more about what could I do for others.
For 2 straight days, with barely a break, those who would normally be paid for their skill or specialty gave it to as many as possible, for nothing in return.
You know, we're just here to serve. No questions asked, just if you have a health need, we're going to help you with it. And it's been wonderful to see the, just all the volunteers, young and old, and just coming together, the young people learning to serve is really beautiful.
And so we have people in these health clinics who are picking up paper, or they are being ushers, or they are doing registration, and they're pulling teeth. They're adjusting eyeglasses and doing ophthalmology and obstetrician work. They're counseling in medical counseling. They're doing spiritual counseling. The whole church is involved in doing ministry for the people in the cities where they live.
Without a doubt, the greatest impact was felt by the patients who experienced unconditional service and a genuine desire for their well-being.
Well, it makes me feel like people really care, and it makes me feel like people here are giving so much, and I don't think they're getting anything in return, but they look so happy serving other people, and so that's very nice because they're not looking sad. They're happy about helping.
I mean, it's amazing. I've been sharing this with people and letting my friends know, dropping flyers off so that more people, and I love this. I am totally amazed at what they've put out today. So it's blessed a lot of people.
I haven't owned regular glasses in over a 15 to 17 year period, and I was thinking this would be a really good time to start seeing again, because I haven't been able to see anything. Everything's just been a cloudy blur to me since I lost my glasses.
There was one man there that had actually come in on a bicycle, and he came in. He had obviously been homeless for quite some time, and he told me that in his homeless journey he had lost his toothbrush for several years, and he was there being treated for a lot of dental work. And to see him go away happy and out of pain and stress-free, and even at the end he got a haircut, just to see him riding away on his bike with a new sense of dignity and a new sense of not having pain in his physical body was a beautiful gift.
And yet the concept of adding value and dignity back into the lives of people is not new. The idea is an ancient one that has inspired Christians for millennia.
Our concept is really following the example of Jesus. He mingled with people, he sympathized with people, he reached out and he exceeded their expectations, and then he bid them to come. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity that we have to mobilize our members in gifts that they have to reach out into our local cities and our local churches.
More than 600 local residents received free care at the Soquel Conference Center, made possible in part because of a partnership with the County of Santa Cruz. Regional leaders endorsed the humanitarian event and assisted in several ways, including in creating awareness for the free clinic.
I think it's incredibly valuable to have partnerships with faith communities, nonprofits, county government. We all have to work together. We actually all care about some of the same things. We care about people in need. We care about the most vulnerable in our community. And we all have different ways in which we work to support people. And when we have a partnership like this, you can really see that people are moving forward and their lives are going to be better from this interaction.
The Life Hope Center's initiative will continue to impact cities across Central California, one life at a time. The only question that remains is how many lives can be changed? How many smiles can be restored? How many eyes can receive sight? How many people can be loved? In the end, those questions can only be answered by one person: you.
Another story about God using young people in evangelism. Souls West is Pacific Union's School of Evangelism located in Prescott, Arizona. Every winter, the school sends second-year students out to churches for a 10-week practicum experience in church-based Bible work. Now, Jasmine from Fresno, California, was one of those students. This last January, she knocked on the door of a girl in her late teens. This girl explained to her that her father had died some months previous and that it had been extremely difficult for her to deal with. And she said to Jasmine, her prepackaged prayers that she was assigned to pray didn't offer her any comfort. Jasmine offered to study the Bible with her, and week after week, Jasmine emphasized the love of God, the character of God, the goodness of God. And after several Bible studies, she told Jasmine, I wanted to give up on God, but you knocked on my door. God uses young people in evangelism.
Emotions, feelings, belief, and EQ.
Thank you so much, appreciate it.
Really big topics. It would have been nice if I had known some of this stuff in the late 1800s when I was a girl. But I didn't. Your parents can only teach you what they know. And we didn't even have the science of brain function back then. But we do now, and it's wonderful. And it's never too late to start. Which brings me to the very first point, that everything starts in your brain, period. Of course, it ends in your brain too, but we're more concerned about where it starts. And that includes emotions, feelings, beliefs, emotional intelligence quotient. Whatever you see, think, hear, feel, touch, choose, must be processed through your brain. So it makes sense that you know something about it so that you can use it by design. For those of you that don't know this piece of information yet, your brain is about the size of your 2 fists. But I point out that size does not equal intelligence. Size is simply about 3 pounds that makes your brain the most amazing piece of biological real estate on this planet and in the known universe. If you put a gray glove on your left hand and a white glove on your right hand, that's about the color of your brain. And that's regardless of skin color. So I always find it kind of interesting that people talk about skin color. Our brains are all the same color. And as soon as you get that, it dumps about 50% of your problems off the back of your metaphorical pickup. The structure of the brain we'll talk a little bit about. And I want to point out that every single brain on the planet is different. Even the brains of identical twins are not identical. And we actually become more different as we get older because every thought you think changes the structure of your brain, and nobody ever thinks the same thoughts, even identical twins. And beyond that, there are also some differences between the male brain and the female brain. We will be covering a little bit of that in some of these sessions. I had my artist draw a cutaway of the brain for you with the 3 layers pulled apart so that you can see there really are 3 functional layers, although when they're all collapsed together, they certainly do work together. The first layer, the reptilian layer, which involves the brain stem and the cerebellum, has no conscious thought. It's called reptilian because that's all reptiles have. The second layer, the mammalian, is a step above, if you will, in terms of functions. We are mammals, and all mammals have a mammalian layer. Still subconscious part of the brain. And then you get up here to the neocortex, which is the 3rd brain layer. And right here at the front, behind your forehead, is where you have working memory, all of the executive functions that distinguish us from most other mammals. There's all kinds of confusion about what we're talking about today. People mix up emotions and feelings, and they are 2 separate entities. They follow different pathways in the brain. Yes, they're kissing cousins, but they're different. And so I'm hoping to explain that to you this morning in a way that you can take away with you. Beliefs, we're very confused about beliefs. Most brains think that the ones they have are the correct ones. The ones they have are just their brain's opinion. It may be based on relatively solid fact, but it's just their brain's opinion. And every brain has different beliefs. And then we come to emotional intelligence. The term was not even coined until the mid-96, 97, something like that. And now we realize how critically important emotional intelligence is to living a healthy, happy, successful, and long life. So let's look at that cutaway of the brain again. Our habits, the routine actions that we load into the brain. If you know how to play the piano, for example, you have routines loaded into that reptilian layer. And the behaviors we exhibit come out of that part of the brain unless we make a different choice cognitively. In the mammalian layer, the middle or second layer, that's where emotional impulses arise. And that's also the home of the brain reward systems that have everything to do with addictive behaviors. And then when we get back up to the third layer, the neocortex, where there is some conscious thought, that's where the brain creates feelings, that's where our moods reside. And a mood is just a feeling that you choose to hang on to for a long time. That's where we create and maintain beliefs. And that's where we develop the skills that allow us to have high levels of emotional intelligence. Because we can think and follow our thought processes sometimes and talk to other people, we sometimes tend to think that all our brain is conscious, and actually a very small part of the brain is conscious. I compare it to an iceberg, with 10 to 15% of the iceberg showing above the waterline and all the rest of it below, which is the reason it's such a danger to ships. Well, the same thing can be applied to the brain. 10 to 15% of that third layer contains conscious thought. Everything else is subconscious, including the body, which is part of your subconscious mind. So the more you can bring to conscious awareness, the better. Because you can only manage what you can label and describe. And that requires conscious thought. So let's talk a little bit about Emotions 101. Emotions are neuropeptides. That means they're brain chemicals that automatically arise and trigger an emotion based on what's going on in the external environment or in your internal environment, in your subconscious or your conscious mind. Think of them as flags or signals, very much like highway cones and flags to tell you that work is being done up ahead or that there's some danger. The only reason emotions exist is to give you information to connect your subconscious with your conscious. And so people who say, boy, I wish I could get rid of all emotions, my life would be much smoother, probably would not be much smoother. The person could be relatively handicapped. When an emotion arises, it changes physiology in your body. Each of the 4 core emotions come with specific physiological markers. And when you're in the grip of a strong emotion, you can think back and remember how your body has changed. Your breathing changes, your heart rate changes, your perspiration level changes, how tight your muscles can be changed, and the butterflies in your stomach can just go haywire. Each of the 4 core emotions also comes with their own set of facial expressions and typical actions and behaviors that over time have come to be associated with those emotions. I only talk about 4 core emotions because those are the emotions that can be seen on the face of the fetus during pregnancy when researchers do uterine scans. And the fetal face will reflect what's going on with the mother. Is the mother happy and secure? Is the baby wanted? Is the mother angry because her family has rejected her in the pregnancy, or the fetal father has disappeared from the scene? is she fearful that she won't be able to take care of the child? Or is she afraid of being in danger from some type of abuse or mistreatment? Or is she sad because she didn't plan on this pregnancy? But it's here, so now what's she going to do? And it's amazing to watch those facial expressions on the face of a fetus. So in summary, researchers believe that a fetus knows, number one, if it's wanted or not. It knows, number two, if it is the right gender. Did the family want a boy and it's a girl, as happened in my case? Or did they want a girl and they've got another boy? The fetus knows that. So here's the summary. Emotions are designed to get your attention for one purpose, and that is to give you information about which you might be unaware, because the brain is continually taking in something like 10 million bits of information per second and sifting through that, deciding what it needs to tell you. What does it think you need to know? Those emotions are designed to link the subconscious parts of your brain and body with the conscious part. They're designed to help you make good ethical and moral decisions. Without emotions, you're going to have a challenge with those. And last, but maybe not least, emotions actually give you energy to take appropriate action based on the information those emotions give you. When in the grip of a strong emotion, Dr. Candace Pert put it this way: you are in a biologically, biochemically altered state. That's true. Think about somebody who is just livid with anger, altered state. Think about somebody who's so sad they can't get out of the chair, altered state. And Joseph Ledoux, a wonderful researcher, says that emotional processes operate at much higher speeds than thoughts. And we know how fast thoughts go. In some parts of the brain, thoughts can cross those neuron pathways at the rate of 600 miles an hour, faster than any of the freeways that are in this country, probably faster even than the Autobahn. Emotional processing is so fast that it often completely bypasses the brain's linear, conscious reasoning processes. And unfortunately, that's the reason that some people in the grip of a strong emotion exhibit behaviors that they spend the rest of their life paying for, because it bypassed conscious thought. Researchers are clear. Information was published recently in the British medical journal, The Lancet, that you can only experience one core emotion at a time because each has a different neuropeptide. You can go back and forth, alternating very quickly, but only one at a time. Of the 4 core emotions, joy is considered the default emotion, meaning that the human brain may be wired for joy because it's the only emotion that has no negative consequences when maintained over time, which is the reason that we want to live at joy and utilize the other 3 personal assistants only as needed. The stage metaphor has been one of the most helpful for me. Some of you have read Shakespeare. All the world's a stage and we are only players. You have a stage in your brain. I don't know what yours looks like, but you need to figure it out, because it's really helpful to be able to see that stage in your mind's eye and recognize which of the assistants is out there on stage with you. When I do something in my mind's eye, money's no expense. So I got a pretty elaborate stage. It's made of Carrara marble, imported from Italy. It's a half circle, it has 3 steps. There's a whole row of Corinthian pillars behind. And we're not talking 24 karat gold plated. Hello? We're talking solid gold. Looks really good. There is a lovely little room on each side of the stage, the wings, if you will. And that's where the 4 assistants live, except for whichever one is out on stage with you at the moment. So, for example, you are on stage your entire life. Until you die, you are on the stage of your brain. And you have one assistant with you at all times. Hopefully it's joy. So I'm here on the stage of my brain with joy, and somebody comes crashing through into this room waving an automatic rifle. Well, that's potentially dangerous. So fear rushes out onto the stage with me, pushes joy into the wings, and helps me decide what it is I can do, if anything, to keep myself safe. As soon as the danger's passed, fear goes back to the wing, and out comes joy. And the same thing happens with anger. When your boundaries are invaded, out comes anger. As soon as that's resolved, it needs to go back into the wing and joy come out. And sadness. Sadness is the emotion that alerts you to the fact that you've experienced a loss. And we're not talking just about big losses. Each one of us have losses every single day. And they need to be acknowledged and grieved and let go. So when you've experienced a loss, out comes sadness to help you deal with that loss. But joy is the one that you want on stage with you most of the time. You're not responsible for every emotion that arises, because sometimes it arises due to what's going on in the environment, and you can't control everything about the environment. Some people try and think they can, but you can't. You are responsible for the emotions that arise based on what you allowed to enter your brain through your senses. So I had a young person come to my office one time complaining because he was waking up every night about 1 o'clock in the morning in a sweat, trembling, terrified, and he wanted me to tell him how to get rid of that. So I asked him what kind of movies he watched every day. Oh, he liked vampire movies. He liked anything that was scary. And I looked at him and I said, what part of this don't you get? You just filled your brain with scary thoughts. You're waking up in the middle of the night, crying and screaming and trembling and terrified, and you're in my office asking me to fix it? The fix is stop putting that stuff into your brain. To that extent, we are responsible for the emotions that arise. Feelings 101. Your brain creates your feelings. When an emotion arises, your brain wants to make sense of it. It wants to figure out, what does this emotion mean? How important is it to you? Is there something we need to do? Feelings always follow thoughts. It's one of the most helpful pieces of brain function information I ever learned. Feelings always follow thoughts. So therefore, if you don't like the way you're feeling, what do you need to do? You need to change the way you think. And that can be done, although if you don't know that it can be done, it's easy to be caught in this circular miasma of feelings that probably would help you be healthier if you changed. We say that generally You're responsible for the feelings that you hang on to because your brain created them. You may not be responsible for the quick initial feeling, but the minute you recognize that feeling, you have a choice. Do you like that? You want to keep feeling that way? Is that going to give you positive outcomes? Is that going to help you increase your happiness and make people like to be around you? Or not? And if the answer is or not, then you need to change the way you think, and your feelings will follow. Remember, emotions and feelings are not the same thing. They follow different pathways in the brain. They are not synonyms, although people often use them that way. The emotion of anger and I feel angry. It'd be nice if we had slightly different words. When I'm teaching this to little Montessori kids, actually to their teachers, we teach them to say, the emotion of anger just surfaced and I'm mad. And that's appropriate to recognize. The issue is it valid for the situation, and how long do you want to hang on to it? When the emotion of fear arises, we teach them to say, that's the emotion of fear, and I'm scared. I have a little trouble with sadness. Can't find a good word for sadness. So we'll teach them, the emotion of sadness just arose, and I feel bad sad. And then we talk about how long they want to feel that way. If you can teach a 5-year-old this, and you can, the rest of us can learn it. Your habit patterns for how you identify emotions, how you manage feelings, are learned in childhood. If you had parents that understood this and could help you with this, you had a leg up. It wouldn't mean that you would learn, but you at least had the role models and the opportunity to learn should you choose to do so. Some don't. If your parents didn't know this, they did the best they could at the time with what they knew. Most people do. But I had to learn this for myself in adulthood. And it is worth the work. You can learn to be healthier. You can learn to make more functional choices, but many don't. And where we see that especially is getting involved with serious addictive behaviors. The science of epigenetics has identified something called cellular memory. And cellular memory may impact how you react to your own emotions and feelings. I find family of origin work really, really helpful to uncover some of the inherited patterns of behaviors that have been passed down to me in my particular generational line. For example, on my mother's side, my maternal line, we've gone back 15 generations. And until my mother's generation, we never found a female who'd ever gone to college. We think some of the boys did, but none of the girls. My mother and her older sister eventually went back to college and got a degree. My mother got a Bachelor of Science in something I can hardly pronounce. She was very bright. And she graduated magna cum laude, which I had to look up and see what that meant. My aunt, her older sister, who actually I'm much more like, got a Bachelor of Science in nursing, became a school nurse in the inner city schools of Los Angeles, and her kids just adored her. So I'm only a second-generation college graduate. I don't know what happened on my father's side. We can't seem to track much on that side. My mom said it's because the whole family were Rolling Stones. Don't know about that, but that was her opinion. Anyway, if you can do some family of origin work, you can help uncover some of these patterns, and they can be altered by choice. But it takes increased awareness, it takes practice, and it takes constant vigilance. Because when you look at the picture of that cell and you see the nucleus, you may be able to pick out that little double helix strand of chromosomes and genes, which is where you get your DNA inheritance. But you'll also notice all those little protein strands that are not genes and chromosomes, but are storage units on which the behaviors that your biological ancestors exhibited, probably back 3 or 4 generations, are filed. So you get some cellular memory based on what your ancestors did. And you pass that on to succeeding generations. So anything you can do to create healthier behaviors potentially can be positive for upcoming generations.
Greetings and welcome to the Best of Soquel. My name is Ramiro Cano, President of the Central California Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. The pin of inspiration shares the following. The camp meeting is one of the most important agencies in our work. It is one of the most effective methods of arresting the attention of the people. Volume 6 of Testimonies, page 31. The Central California Conference has had a very long tradition with our annual camp meeting ministry. We can trace it back for over 138 years in our conference territory. For the last 70 years, camp meeting has been held in our conference center in Soquel, California, near Santa Cruz. Camp meeting continues to be a transformative blessing, embodying old-fashioned tent revival evangelism while simultaneously sharing God's Word through a variety of inspirational and riveting speakers. Last year alone, the Soquel Camp Meeting pulpit was host to over 71 hours of live television broadcasting for both local and streaming to a worldwide church community of more than 96 countries, transporting the hope of God's soon return and the comfort of Christ's love to the furthest places of the world. It is my honor and my privilege to make the Best of Soquel available to you. At the same time, I invite you to become part of the Soquel legacy by partnering with us in our evangelism fund. Each year, Soquel Camp Meeting goers collect funds to propel evangelism in a variety of ways. To do so, go to Central California Conference's homepage, centralcaliforniaadventist.com. Even $1 a day is of great value to God's work. These gifts are 100% for evangelism. We invite you to also download our app, CCC Space SDA. Through it, you can enjoy many video sermons. We also have a prayer wall where you can submit a prayer request. So dear friends, wherever you are today, I invite you to sit back, let the Holy Spirit lead, be transformed by the message, the prayers, and the testimony segments. Catch and enjoy the Best of Soquel.
Emotional Intelligence Quotient 101. We call it EQ for short. It's just a set of skills that help you know what feels good, what feels bad, and how you can get from bad to good in a way that will consistently result in positive outcomes. Yes, you need to recognize that even though you may have high levels of EQ and are doing your best, there's still the possibility that another brain will take whatever you're doing in a way you didn't intend it. And you can't be responsible for that. You can just do your best to make choices that are going to give you outcomes that in general are positive. The problem comes when people who don't have a lot going on good in their lives often know what it feels like to be good, although some may not get to that stage that environment, that situation very often. In order to feel good, because they do know what feels bad, they may get involved with an addictive behavior. Because when you trigger the brain reward system, that can help you feel good in a nanosecond, although it is an illusion of feeling good. It is pseudo-joy. And down the line, you're going to pay for that. Because hardcore addicts don't live very long. And they really don't have genuinely fulfilling lives with true happiness. Your IQ range is inherited, and I think Western countries especially have put too much emphasis on IQ. It's interesting to learn that you probably get your IQ range, your IQ potential, from your opposite gender parent. And before anybody groans, we're not talking about whether or not that parent did anything educational with their IQ. It's just a potential. In my family, my mother loved to study. You know, I told you she graduated magna cum laude. So the whole family figured that she was really smart. And I think she probably had a good IQ, which my brother got. And he was very proud of that. He would wander around saying, "I'm smart, just like my mom." I got my IQ from my father. Yes, he graduated from college, but he never was interested in going on and getting any more education. But that man could fix anything that someone brought to him that was not working. I've never known him not to be able to jerry-rig something that made it work, which is definitely a form of intelligence, but not necessarily book intelligence. So my brother has my mother's IQ, and I've got my father's IQ. I was lecturing in another country, and a woman came up to me after I had made a similar statement and said, "You're wrong." I said, "Well, I may be. In what way do you think I'm in error?" Oh, she said, "I have 5 sons. They didn't get their IQ from me. I didn't even graduate from high school." I said, "Really? Tell me about your boys." "Well, one is a PhD, and one is an EDD, and one is an MD, and one is a DDS, and she went down the line. I said, "They got their IQ range from you." She said, "They did?" I said, "That's what the research is." Pause. They're all coming home this weekend. We're going to have some interesting discussions around the dinner table. I don't know whether it was a good thing I was already out of the country by then, but hopefully they got a different picture of IQ. Now, so you inherit your range, and most people can raise their IQ from 5 to 30 points if they want to work on it, depending where they start. But EQ skills are learned personally. And here's the formula. IQ plus EQ equals SQ, your success quotient. They don't contribute equally. At most, IQ contributes 20%. The rest is EQ at 80% or more, and you can develop those skills. Interesting studies about managers in business organizations. The studies reveal that very successful managers often have a very average IQ. United States and Australia, mean IQ is 100. The range under the bell curve of distribution is 85 to 115. It's very adequate. So they have an average IQ, but very high levels of EQ. And the reverse is also true. Unsuccessful managers have been found to have very high IQs, but abysmally low EQ, which is the reason they're not successful. So even your success in life in terms of this management study has a lot to do with your EQ level. A few characteristics that can be seen, exhibited in people, depending whether they have high EQ or low EQ. Low EQ, dejected, angry, lonely, stressed, dependent, tired. High IQ, motivated, contented, still striving, but okay with where they are right now. Connected, energetic, interdependent, and calm. Low EQ, frustrated, unaware, unstable, up and down, never know what they're going to be like, restless, low levels of self-worth, unhappy, compared to high EQ, satisfied, aware, balanced, peaceful, high levels of self-esteem, self-worth, and happy. Low EQ, they perceive failure. I can't do it. Nobody ever gives me any breaks. They do not know or do not delay gratification, so they don't meet their deadlines. They keep putting everything off. High EQ, they perceive success. I can do better next time. And they know how to delay gratification. They are ready when the deadline comes. So if you're an employer, who do you want to hire? It's a pretty slam dunk. In fact, Dr. Singh in India is working on an EQ assessment that he hopes will be vetted for HR departments in organizations to see if they can select out people who have higher levels of EQ, because employees with low levels of EQ are expensive for the company. They don't get the job done, they have lots of conflict, and so on and so forth. And now you talk about dating and perhaps wanting to marry somebody. Tell me, who do you want? I mean, when you really look at it, there's no question in my mind. High EQ is the way to go. Researchers plot behaviors on a metaphorical continuum based on whether the outcomes of their behaviors are generally positive or negative. And so we talk about low EQ, average EQ, and high EQ. And if you go back in history, if you read scripture, even if you read contemporary stories today, and you look at the behaviors people chose and exhibited, and what were the outcomes? It's all connected to emotional intelligence. There are 3 behaviors clearly aligned with low emotional intelligence, and those 3 I call JOT behaviors. J stands for jumping to conclusions. O stands for overreacting, which I'm sure none of you ever do. And T stands for taking things personally. And these behaviors tend to lead to conflict, escalate conflict. They're stressful to the brain and body. They contribute to illness. They contribute to crime. And sometimes they contribute to death because of the stress and the illness or because of the crime. Studies suggest that if you avoid JOT behaviors, you will knock 50% of your problems off the back of your life truck. You're still going to have some problems, but I'll tell you, half of what you've already got will make the ones you still have seem like nothing. Decrease conflict and stress. Decrease susceptibility to deceptions, delusions, erroneous beliefs. You can expect better relationships, higher levels of health, and better quality judgments, decisions, and choices. Beliefs. Your brain forms your beliefs. Yes, you may inherit some of them, you may see them role modeled, but you decide the beliefs you're going to hang on to. A belief is just a state of mind in which you perceive the likelihood of something being true. You may or may not have any empirical evidence, but you believe that it's true. Researchers say there are 6+ billion belief systems on this planet because every brain is different. The thing about beliefs in the brain is that the brain is very susceptible to deceptions and illusions, especially those that make it seem like you can have it all, or if you do this, guaranteed success. I like to think of beliefs as camera filters. Your beliefs change the way you see the world. And if you change your beliefs, you tend to see the world differently. Your biology, your physical body, adapts to your beliefs. That was the basis on which we wrote the Longevity Lifestyle Matters program. Only 30% of how you live, how well you live, how long you live, has to do with your generational inheritance. 70% has to do with your ongoing choices. You can change your mind, according to Dr. Bruce Lipton, who arguably is the #1 authority right now on epigenetics and cellular memory. You can change your mind. You can actually switch blueprints to change even your genetic potential. Andrew Newberg, a neo-theologian who studies the brain and spirituality and religion and the impact of both of those, has said that what constitutes proof about something is also a form of belief, because the proof just came out of somebody else's brain. And it is susceptible to alteration, especially due to authoritarianism as well as peer group pressure. So helping young people understand this early in life hopefully can make them a little less susceptible to peer pressure, which can alter their beliefs relatively quickly. Neither children nor adults have a very well-developed capacity to distinguish the accuracy of their beliefs. People don't like to hear me say that. But no brain is gifted at distinguishing the accuracy of what it believes. And adults especially are vulnerable in terms of maintaining self-deceptive beliefs, have a hard time evaluating themselves. There's something called the Dunning-Kruger effect, in which people who are highly competent are continually evaluating themselves, continually critiquing what they're doing, trying to do better, usually quite humble about what they do. People who are much less skilled and much less competent often think that they're better than anybody else on the planet. They're not good at self-deceptive beliefs. As I mentioned, epigenetics and cellular memory, some inclination for beliefs may be hardwired into the brain based on cellular memory, based on what your biological ancestors did. You need to bring to conscious awareness your beliefs, because you can only manage what you label and describe. So identify and examine your beliefs. Get them out and look at them. Realize that emotions bind your perceptions to your beliefs, which makes them not all just seem more real, but it makes them much stronger. As you evaluate and examine your beliefs, know the reasons for the ones you keep, the ones you alter, the ones you discard. Be careful about that. Bill Wilson, the moving force behind 12-step programs that around the world are the most effective for dealing with people who are struggling with the addiction of alcohol, said that no one can make much of a life until self-searching has become a regular habit. So access your willpower right here, prefrontal cortex, third layer, to help you set and maintain your boundaries based on the beliefs that you choose to embrace and hang on to. Everything begins and ends in your brain. That's where we started. Carefully manage your emotions, feelings, beliefs, and level of EQ because it matters. It matters for your health. It matters for your success. It matters for your potential longevity. Many people sort of drift through life by the seat of their pants, as the old saying goes. And when they get something right and have a success, they're not good at self-examination, so they don't understand what they really did in order to achieve that success, so it's hard to replicate. And on the other side of the coin, when they do have failures and make mistakes, which just shows that they're part of the human family, because all human beings make mistakes, people who think they don't have just made a big mistake right there. So it's really important to take a look at that. So let's recap. Emotions are neuropeptides, brain chemicals that arise because of what's going on outside in the environment and inside in your own environment. Feelings, maybe a kissing cousin, but feelings are different. They are created by your brain based on what it thinks about the emotion, what it means to you, and what you think you need to do about it. Beliefs are also created by your brain, and they are what you think are true and real. They may be, they may not be, because adults aren't too good at that. And finally, emotional intelligence are a set of skills that help you manage emotions and feelings successfully, with the hope that you are healthier and younger for longer, with high levels of physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health. Thank you.
We would like to thank the constituency of the Central California Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church for making this program possible, and from viewers just like you. Thank you.